Hello everyone. Today I am here with one session on a new topic, that is occipito-posterior position of the vertex. It is the mal position. Now let's see first what is it. Definition. This is the vertex presentation with occiput lying in posterior position either against right sacroiliac joint, that is ROP, right occipito-posterior, the third position, or the left sacroiliac joint, that is LOP, left occipito-posterior, the fourth position, or directly over sacrum, called occipito-posterior position. So here occiput is lying in the posterior quadrant of the pelvis. Either it is lying in the right posterior quadrant, the position is ROP, or it is lying in the left posterior quadrant and the position is LOP. So that is the occipito-posterior position. Now, why is it the abnormal position? Because vertex is the presentation, and we say that a vertex is the normal presentation. So even though here there is vertex presentation, why is it called abnormal position? When we talk about the normal position, the normal positions are anterior position. There are mainly four positions possible: LOA, ROA, ROP and LOP. LOA and ROA are the anterior position, so they are the normal position. Here occiput is lying posteriorly, so ROP and LOP are the abnormal position. That's why occipito-posterior is the mal position. Now the incidence of this condition: about 10% of all vertex presentations at the onset of labor, that we say secondary, and in the pelvic cavity during or before the onset of labor, that we say primary. So when it is detected before the onset of labor, it is primary, and when it is found at the onset of labor, that is the secondary one. So about 10% of all vertex presentations have occipito-posterior position. ROP is 5 times as common as LOP. So in the occipito-posterior positions, when two positions are possible, ROP and LOP, ROP is 5 times more common than LOP. Now we come to the etiology of occipito-posterior position. The exact cause is not known, but there are certain factors which favor the occipito-posterior position. These factors are fault in the passage, fault in the passenger, and fault in the power. Now as you have studied, now you are aware about normal labor, you must be knowing the passage, passenger and power in the labor. Passage is the birth passage, passenger is the fetus who is passing through the birth passage, and power is the uterine contraction which causes the passage of the fetus through the birth passage, right? So whenever we find fault in any of these factors, it will lead to occipito-posterior position. We'll discuss each fault one by one. We start with fault in the passage. The shape of the pelvic inlet determines the position of the head at the onset of labor. So whether it will be anterior position or posterior position, it is determined by the shape of the pelvic inlet, right? So this depends on the type of the pelvis, because different type of the pelvis will have different shapes of the pelvic inlet, right? There are mainly 4 types of the pelvis: gynecoid, android, anthropoid and platypelloid. These are the 4 types of the pelvis. These you must have studied in your first year class in the anatomy. Gynecoid is the female pelvis. Most of the females have gynecoid type of the pelvis. This pelvis is adequate enough to allow the birth of the average sized fetus. Average size means when the weight is about 2.5 or 3 kg. So gynecoid pelvis can allow the passage of that average size fetus. Anthropoid pelvis is a type of variety of the gynecoid pelvis. So it is very similar to the gynecoid pelvis. Android pelvis is the male pelvis and the platypelvoid pelvis is the small flat pelvis. If you see the pelvic, or you can say the forepelvis is the anterior part of the pelvis. If you see the forepelvis of the android and the platypelvoid pelvis, it is narrow. Now you see the fetal head, front part of the head and the back part of the head. Which part is narrower? The front part is narrower. The occiput is comparatively broader. Right? Now in the android and the platypelvoid pelvis, because the forepelvis is narrow, because the forepelvis, the front part of the pelvis is narrow, anterior part of the pelvis is narrow, the front part of the fetal head, as it is narrower than the occipital, posterior part can better accommodate in the forepelvis. It can well accommodate in the forepelvis. Hope you all are understanding what I am explaining you. So, because the front part of the head is narrow and the forepelvis of android and platypelvoid pelvis is also narrow, the front part, the anterior part comes towards the anterior side. It comes in the forepelvis of these two types of the pelvis, android and platypelvoid. So, these will lead to occipito-posterior position. So, in short, you can find occipito-posterior more commonly in the android and platypelvoid type of the pelvis, right? So when the females have android or platypelvoid type of the pelvis, they are more likely to have occipito-posterior position of the fetus. Second is fault in the passenger, that is fault in the fetus. Marked deflection of the fetal head, that is in favor of the occipito-posterior position. Deflection is neither flexion nor extension. The head is straight. So this deflection is in favor of the occipito-posterior position. Now why there occurs this deflection? Due to high pelvic inclination. When the head is flexed like this, when the head is bent over the chest, the head has more inclination towards the pelvis. So head will remain towards the pelvis. You can imagine head is facing pelvis and head has inclination to pelvis. So fetal head will not be flexed. Flexion is prevented because of this high pelvic inclination. I hope you understand this. Attachment of placenta on anterior wall of the uterus. These also favors the posterior position of the vertex. And the third important factor is primary brachycephaly. Brachy means short and cephaly is the head. This condition shortens the length of the fetal head from front to atlantocervical joint. Atlantocervical joint. What is atlas? Atlas is the first cervical vertebra. So when the occiput unites with the first cervical vertebra, it forms atlanto-occipital joint. This joint is ellipsoid type of or ellipsoid variety of the synovial joint. This joint allows various movements of the fetal head at the anteroposterior axis and at the transverse axis. These movements are flexion, extension and lateral flexion. So, because of this atlanto-occipital joint, the movements of the fetal head, these movements are flexion, extension and lateral flexion are possible. Right? Now, because of the primary brachycephaly, as the length of this distance from the front part of the fetal head to the atlanto-occipital joint reduces, these movements are also restricted. Right? Now, for complete flexion of the head, there has to be free movement of the atlanto-occipital joint. Because of this primary brachycephaly, the movement is restricted, flexion is restricted, so flexion may not occur. It is in favor of the deflection of the head. The head remains deflexed. And when there is deflection of the head, occipito-posterior position is likely to result. The third factor is, see, here I have explained you. Primary brachycephaly shortens the length of the fetal head from frontal to atlanto-occipital joint. So it is diminishing the effective movement of flexion of the fetal head. So if you could not understand what I just tried to explain you, you can go through these slide also. So you can better understand why primary brachycephaly leads to occipito-posterior position. Now the third fault is fault in the power. Power is uterine contraction. Abnormal uterine contractions or uterine inertia. Inertia is uterine inactivity. It will cause persistent deflection of the fetal head and lead to occipito-posterior position. Then we come to diagnosis. How can we diagnose the condition? Diagnosis can be done during late pregnancy or during labor. So at whatever time the patient comes to you, suppose if she comes to you in the late pregnancy, then only you can diagnose occipito-posterior position. And if she comes to you in the labor only, then also you may diagnose the condition. So first of all, you can diagnose this condition on clinical examination. First is per abdomen examination. We start with the inspection. The suprapubic region appears relatively flat in ROP or LOP than in the LOA or ROA due to the position. Like you can see here this diagram. The left one shows you the occipito anterior position, LOA or ROA, and the right one shows you the occipito posterior position. Occiput is rounded part and the front part of the head is somewhat flat. So when there is occipito anterior position, the suprapubic region is somewhat elevated. Whereas when there is occipito posterior position, because the front part of the head is anterior and the front part is relatively flat, there will be no such elevation seen on the suprapubic region. So you can see these diagrams, you can see this figure. This will make your understanding better, right? That is what we find on inspection. Then palpation, breach at fundal grip. You can palpate the buttocks at fundal grip. Back and limbs. Again, please find the spelling correction is limbs, extremities. Back and limbs at lateral grip. On one lateral grip you will find the back, on the other side you will find the limbs, right? Head at the pelvic grip. Again you see this figure. These shows you the ROP and LOP position. Now see here, the fetal back, it is on the posterior side, so it is felt towards the flank of the mother. Fetal back are felt towards the flank of the mother, and the extremities, they are felt towards the midline of the mother's abdomen. See in both the position, in both the side, the fetal body is turned, the extremities are towards the midline. You can imagine this. So fetal back, whatever is the position, ROP or LOP, the back is felt towards the flank of the mother and the extremities are felt towards the midline of the mother's abdomen. So these you will find a difference than in the anterior positions, LOA and ROA. You will not find the same location of the back and extremities in case of the LOA or ROA, the anterior position. So these also you should note. When you can palpate the back towards the flank of the mother, you can suspect the occipito-posterior position. This is how clinical examination helps you to diagnose any particular condition, right? Fetal head may not be engaged. The cephalic prominence, that is the sinciput, it is not felt so prominent as found in valflex occipito-anterior position. So these you find on per abdomen palpation. Now we come to the auscultation. Fetal heart sound, they are best heard on the flank in the ROP or LOP position. This I just told you. In the occipito-posterior position, the back of the fetus is felt towards the mother's flank. And you know that we are trying to locate fetal heart sound also towards the side of the fetal back. So you will find FHS on the flank of the mother, right? While it is distinctly felt on the midline in the direct occipito-posterior position. So when the occiput is directly facing the sacrum, when it is direct occipito-posterior position, you can locate FHS towards the midline. It is not on any side of the mother's abdomen, right? Then we come to the pervaginal examination. During early labor, we can do pervaginal examination during early labor and during late phase of the labor. So first we discuss the findings when we examine during early labor. Elongated bag of membranes felt, which is likely to rupture during examination. The bag of membranes may rupture during the pervaginal examination. Sagittal suture occupies any of the oblique diameter of the pelvis, commonly the right one, that is due to the occipito-posterior position. The posterior fontanelle is felt near the sacroiliac joint. Both anterior and posterior fontanelles are easily felt. Anterior one more easily felt due to deflection of the head. It may be felt at lower level than posterior one sometimes. Whatever is mentioned on the slide, you can compare this or you can relate this with some imagination. So you can understand very well. During the late second stage, earlier we found or we discussed the findings of during early labor. Now we say during the late second stage. Caput forms which obliterates the sutures and fontanelles. So diagnosis becomes difficult. Here one should try to palpate the fetal forehead or the unfolded pinna, which points towards the occiput to detect the position of the fetal head. That we try to detect the position of the occiput. Pelvic shape and size are clinically assessed for any abnormality. That is specially to see the pelvic adequacy. So clinical examination is done to know this pelvic shape and size also. Ultimately, when clinical examination is doubtful, you can confirm your diagnosis through ultrasonography. So USG confirms the clinical diagnosis. So that was all about, or you can say it is the end of first session on occipito-posterior position. I hope you all have understood till diagnosis of the occipito-posterior position. We'll discuss the mechanism of occipito-posterior position in the next session. Thank you.